Okay, so I'm gonna do 3 pounds, just like I did with the vase that I did the other day. The more clay you use, the better it is to start with it closer to the middle. If it's really out of round and really out of the middle, it's gonna be really hard to center. Okay, oh, I need to take this up. All right, so use your body to get that centered. I'm gonna bring up at least 2 cones. Second one, I kind of grab on again with kind of the base of my pinky here. I keep my thumb kind of up, and I can bring that cone up a little further. I'm just trying to feel the clay. I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't slow down. If it slows down, that means it's gonna rip off. So make sure you don't let it slow down. Now, one hand's gonna push forward, one hand's gonna kind of pull back right in the middle here. And you can see I kind of bend it as I push it down. And that keeps it from doing the hula dance. And then I'm gonna go back to my normal centering position to finish centering. Okay, these taller things, you gotta make sure they're really good and centered. The bottle is one of those things, especially because when you actually get to bring the neck in of the bottle, if it's not centered, if you didn't drop the hole on center, it's gonna be really difficult to bring that neck in, because as you squeeze it, the thin parts there's gonna be a thin part and a thick part if you don't have it centered. And when you try to squeeze that in, they're gonna compress differently, and then you're gonna end up collapsing your wall, because the thin part is gonna give a lot more than the thick part. So really good and centered. Make sure, one more time, just to be sure. Okay, drop the hole. Just be really patient when you drop the hole, don't try to force it. And I'm kind of almost pulling back just a little bit as I do this. And if you look at the bottom of the cylinder, there's a little bit of a bump. That means I'm just on my side of center, of off center. I drop that hole. I don't particularly care for trimming bottles, so I'm gonna drop it down to a depth where I know I don't have to trim it. I'm gonna pull it back and open. And again, this is a tall thing. I want it to be tall and not wide, so I'm only opening it up just a little bit more than I would for a cup or something. Compress the floor. Now again, I'm going to try to bring up this volcano a little bit more than I would for a bowl or a cup. I'm going to grab on with my pinky and push forward. I'm going to pull back. Nice and slow. If you feel like your hands are sticking a little bit, like I did, I'm going to grab a little bit more water. I'm going to bring it up to a pretty narrow hole. I'm going to compress the rim to make sure that it's nice and even all the way around. Open it up. Okay, so now I have a nice even top half of the cylinder. Do top half of the volcano. Slow my wheel down. Okay, now I'm ready to make my pull. So the bulk of the clay is actually kind of like right in the middle here. It tapers thin up at the top, and then there's a really deep undercut in the bottom. I do want this clay to be going up in kind of a cone shape initially. Okay, have fun, move that finger forward. Again, I like to just kind of hold onto my sponge, and this is gonna kind of go and push on the clay on the outside. I'm gonna grab onto the clay on the inside. And you can see that inside pressure is kind of pushing out a bump on the outside. I'm gonna bring all that clay up, get to the top, stop, and take my fingers off. With the bottle, it's pretty important that this top part is really even and not too thin. It's about 1/4 inch thick here, and that's about where I want it. If it's too thin, it'll kind of collapse as you try to neck it in. If it's too thick, you're gonna collapse the stuff underneath it when you try to neck it in. I'm not leaving any extra clay for a rim, okay? Like I would for, well, maybe a vase or a pitcher or something like that. It's just kind of tapers off to a little bit thinner there. Okay, making my groove, support on the inside, push that clay underneath. Okay, I'm gonna grab on. A bump on the outside is my inside hand pushing a bump out, and then I lift the bump up with my outside hand. I move my body up and over the clay. As I get towards the top, my inside hand tapers the pressure off a little bit, so I'm lightening the pressure on the inside. My outside hand is continuing to push that clay up. But the pull goes from the bottom all the way to the top. I don't stop the pull halfway, just because my clay gets thinner. Okay, just a little bit more clay to pull up from the bottom. Now I do it in 3 pulls. You can do it in as many as you need to do. I found for me, I can't really get that much more out of the 4th or 5th pull, so try to get it there in 3. Nice and slow. Don't worry about those wrinkles on the side there. Just keep going. Move your body up and over the clay. If you are getting those wrinkles on the side, okay, my inside is tapering off. Connect your hands. Okay. If you are getting those wrinkles on the side, that means you're pulling the cylinder back towards yourself. So move your body closer to the clay. All right. Make sure you get the water out. Once you make it a bottle, you can't get the water out, and if you leave the water in there, you're going to get cracks. Just kind of feeling the clay there. So just remove the excess. All right. So sometimes when I do these taller forms, if I have a really tall cylinder, I need to stick my hand in there. I'm gonna get my arm wet. That way it doesn't stick to the side, because it'll kind of stick and go like, it's kind of weird, weird sensation. Okay, first pass, I'm just going to compress it. So you can see my right elbow is braced kind of in my body. And I'm going to stop right about there. The reason I'm not going to compress this part is because if I compress it, it's a little bit more difficult to get into a bottleneck. That's the clay I'm going to use for the neck of the bottle there. Okay. This hand, I don't know if you can see that. I hold it, I just kind of have my hand out, and I just kind of put the rib with the tip kind of pointed away from my fingers and just a little bit kind of extended past there. The ribs are at a 45 or a 90-degree angle to each other, but 45 degrees to the clay. Okay, so it's kind of evenly spaced on the clay. And I pull back on the inside hand, and I push forward a little bit with my outside hand if I want that to be nice and straight. So depending on what shape you want your bottle, I'm not entirely sure what shape I want my bottle to be. Technically, a bottle is just means like the top is narrower than the foot, which is opposite the bowl, which the foot is narrower than the top. I don't know. We'll just give it a little bit of shape here. One thing about the bottle is because you're exaggerating the neck, you don't have to put a ton of shape into it if you don't want to, because it'll like just the neck exaggeration will give it a bunch, will give it an interesting shape usually. I'll make the same bottle that I have up top, basically. So kind of from the bottom to the top. I don't try to put too much shape down at the bottom all at once. If you push this all out at once and you try to shape everything above it, it's just gonna kind of collapse. So the bottom, if I wanna push that bottom out, it's usually the last thing I'll do. So just kind of a nice soft shape here. You notice I'm stopping at a certain point there, because I want to make sure that I have enough clay for the neck. Maybe I can go just a little bit further. I'm just sort of watching the shape happen as I push it out just a little bit at a time. You can push it back a little bit with the outside rib. It's best to not push it out if it doesn't need to go out. So if I were to push this shoulder part out, I'd have a vase. Like you can't really go back in once this kind of goes out. Like I wouldn't really be able to push this in too much, or that. I mean, I could maybe a little bit. But it's thin now, so it's going to be more difficult. Okay, one more time. I'm just going to go in and get the water out at the bottom. Okay, here's the fun part, making a bottle. There's a couple different ways that you can squeeze in the neck. You can just kind of like take your hands like this and go around it and just kind of squeeze it in a little bit. That sort of works. Just want to make sure that you have even pressure all the way around. You don't want to have all of your pressure here. See what happens? It kind of goes oblong. That's not going to squeeze it in. You want to make sure that the pressure is even all the way around when you try to squeeze it in. The way that I actually do it is, I think I saw it on, probably saw it on YouTube, some probably Asian potter. I like to watch Asian potters, Japanese or Chinese or something, maybe Korean potter was making a bottle. And they made the neck like super quickly, and so like studied the video to see how they were doing it. Basically what you do is you kind of squeeze in the spot where you want the neck, and then you tilt your hands up like this and you lift, and the surface of your index finger and your thumb kind of guides the clay up. Again, you want it to be evenly spaced. What I'll do is I'll kind of do like a U or a field goal kind of thing, and I'll have these fingers kind of extended and then kind of turn it sideways. And you almost make like a 6-pointed star kind of with your fingers. So I'll show the camera there. I'm using the tip of my index and thumb and the back of my middle finger, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on the shoulder, and I'm gonna go up in the shape of the shoulder that I want, okay? I'm gonna raise my hands up and I'm gonna squeeze at the same time. I'm not gonna go straight in. If I go straight in and squeeze, the top's just gonna go boom and just fall in. You'd be creating a cantilever, which is an unsupported thing sticking out into space, and it just fall in. What I'm trying to do is create an arch form. An arch form is very stable, okay? And it'll hold itself up. So what I'll do is I'll follow the shoulder, I'll squeeze in, and then I'm gonna tilt my hands up, and I'm gonna pull up like that, and it just turns into a bottle. Like, it's kind of magical. Okay, my hands are evenly spaced. I can't talk while I do this, so you're just gonna have to watch. Okay, I'm gonna start on the shoulder, I'm gonna squeeze. I'm going to tilt my hands up. Okay, and I have a bottle. Okay, I'm not done. This is not a sufficient enough bottle for me. Maybe in the past I would have stopped here. So I'm going to take that slip off of the shoulder and the initial pass. I'm going to pull this up just a little bit, because when you squeeze it in, it gets a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to pull it up just a little bit, and I'm just using my fingertips to do this. Just my middle finger. Trim off a little clay from the top. You're always going to need to trim off a little clay, because no matter how well you center it, maybe there's somebody out there that can center it well enough, but no matter how well you do it, you're almost always going to need to trim a little clay off the top. Recompress. Okay, re-wet. I'm going to re-wet this shoulder here where I'm going to be actually working. And you notice I didn't re-wet that place that was wet before. Okay, face over the clay, follow the shoulder, squeeze. And this time I'm just going to leave it like that. Go in and pull this a little bit. Recompress the rim. I kind of like this shaped neck. I don't know how functional it is, but should have got one of the smaller metal ribs. Be really careful that you don't collapse the shoulder here, because it can be a little sensitive. Yeah, I do need a smaller metal rib, but we'll make do here. I'll have to get back and see if that transition looks okay. Does anybody have a triangle rib I can borrow? Can I borrow your triangle rib, please? And this thing, I'm gonna do the foot. So I'm gonna hold on the inside of the bottleneck as I do the foot here. Just gonna push that clay in just a little bit. Thank you. Lift it up. Smooth it out. And then refine that curve. And bring that shape into the rest of it. And I'm going to soften the form just a little bit, and I'm done. And that's a bottle. Make sure I have a nice place for the wire to go. Hopefully I didn't cut through. Guess we'll see. Moment of truth here. Kind of felt like I cut through. Oh no, it's fine. Yep, there you go. There's a bottle.